The rematch that nobody really asked for, but at the same time is still exciting, is going down this Saturday. Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev 2. Originally, Gaethje was supposed to fight Dan Hooker, which honestly made more sense in terms of a fresh matchup. But when Hooker pulled out, we ended up with this rematch instead. And I'm not gonna lie, at first I was really not feeling it. I was like, dude, do we really need to see this again? But after more time has passed, the more I'm getting hyped for it, because at the end of the day, this fight is a guaranteed banger. And to be fair, the first fight was super close. I see some people acting like Gaethje wins this easily, but that's not how it went down the first time. Their first fight was competitive, so competitive that I think one of the judges even scored it a draw. So yeah, I think we're in for another crazy one. And the reason why the first fight was so close comes down to the way both guys fight. Fiziev had that speed advantage and his striking was razor sharp, especially early on. He was landing clean shots, utilizing kicks effectively, and looking like the more technical fighter. But Gaethje, as always, was relentless, absorbing shots, pressuring forward, and turning the fight into a gritty war. The real turning point was when Gaethje started adjusting. He began using his jab more, mixing in uppercuts, and really making Fiziev feel his power. And let's not forget, Gaethje also had a huge edge in experience when it came to the deep waters. As the fight went on, Fiziev started slowing down just a little, while Gaethje was right there, pushing the pace and doing damage. By the end, you could argue that Fiziev won the early rounds, but Gaethje took over the late, and that's why it was such a close fight. It was a classic case of speed and precision versus pressure and durability. Some people saw it as Gaethje's clear win, but if you go back and watch, Fiziev was in that fight every step of the way. That's what makes this rematch interesting, because now we get to see who made the better adjustments. Now I already know what some people are going to say, but Gaethje's chin is gone. He got knocked out by Max Holloway, and yeah, let's be real, it was a brutal knockout, no sugarcoating that. Probably the one of the worst ones in his career. But here's the thing, that doesn't automatically mean his chin is gone. That wasn't just some random clean shot that put him down. This was Max Holloway putting together one of the most perfect time precision combinations we've ever seen. It wasn't like Gaethje just got clipped early and went out. This was an accumulation of damage, perfectly placed shots, and an insane final sequence. And let's not forget, Gaethje has been in these kind of fights before. He's taken bombs from absolutely killers, like Poirier, like Chandler, like Oliveira, you name it. And yeah, he's been stopped before, but every time people say that's it, his chin is gone. And every time he comes back and he proves them wrong. And another big thing here is Gaethje actually took time off. He didn't just jump back into another fight right away. He gave his body and brain and his chin time to heal. We've seen fighters get pulled out badly, rush back, and their durability is really gone. That's not the case here. Gaethje took months to recover, and I really believe that's going to make a huge difference. So yeah, I get concerned anytime a fighter gets knocked out like that. People start questioning their durability, but let's not act like one bad loss erases everything else we've seen from him. If he was stepping back there in a couple months, I'd be worried. But with the time off, the training camp, and the fact that Fiziev isn't exactly a one-shot knockout guy, I think Gaethje's chin will hold up just fine. But look, I don't want to sit here and act like Fiziev can't win this fight, because if he's going to win, there's a very clear path for him. He has to come out fast, put that high pace, explosive striking on Gaethje early, and try to get him out of there. We've seen Fiziev start strong before. He's fast, he's sharp, and his kickboxing is elite. If he can overwhelm Gaethje in the first 2 rounds before Gaethje settles in, before the fight turns into a war, that's when he's the most dangerous. Now, could that happen? Absolutely. We've seen Justin get hurt early in their fight before. Poirier caught him early, Charles rocked him in the first round. It's not impossible to see Fiziev land a clean shot and doing real damage, especially in those first few minutes when Gaethje is still trying to find his rhythm. And let's not forget, Fiziev is the fresher fighter in terms of overall mileage. He hasn't been through the same level of wars that Gaethje has. So if he's ever going to do a huge statement finish, this would be the time to do it. But, and this is a big but, if Fiziev doesn't get that early finish, that's where things get dicey, because he is talented as he is. I just don't know if he has the cardio or the raw power to go for a full 5 round with Gaethje, especially in that high pace. That's what makes this fight so tricky for me. When Fiziev is fresh, when he's moving in and out, throwing those explosive kicks, he looks like one of the best strikers in the division. But as the fight goes on, you start to see that drop off. I mean, look at the RDA fight for an example. Yeah, he got that late finish, but that was a slow paced fight. He wasn't fighting at the same crazy speed he usually does. He had to pick his shots, manage his energy, and RDA, who isn't really known as a knockout threat, was still in that fight until the very end. Against someone like Gaethje, who will keep coming forward, who will keep pushing the pace, I don't know if Fiziev can afford to fight at that slower tempo. And even if he does he have the power to really put Gaethje away in the later rounds? Because knocking out RDA in the 5th round is one thing, but stopping a guy like Gaethje, who, let's be honest, has taken bombs from the hardest hitters in the division, that's a completely different challenge. So that's where I'm at with this. I can see a world where Fiziev comes out hot, puts Gaethje on the back foot, and maybe lands something big early, but if that doesn't happen, if Gaethje weathers the storm and turns this into a drawn out war, that's when it starts looking like a Justin fight. And that's why I'm struggling to pick Fiziev here, but it's narrow. Gaethje, on the other hand, has more ways to win. Now, if we're talking about where Gaethje is going to find some success, I think it comes down to a few key things. His durability, his ability to make the fight ugly with his ugly counters, and his low kicks. Now, let's start with his durability factor. And I know, we just went all over the whole chin argument, but let's think about it from a different angle. Even if Fiziev lands clean shots early, history has shown that Gaethje doesn't just go away early. He's one of those guys who keeps taking a big shot, shakes it off, and keeps pressing forward. And that's huge in a fight like this because Fiziev isn't used to guys just mostly eating his best shots and still coming after him. Most guys get caught up in his speed and technique. But Gaethje, he thrives in chaos. If Fiziev lands a big shot and thinks that that's going to be enough to stop Gaethje in his tracks, he might be in for a rude awakening. But really, the biggest advantage Gaethje has here is ability to control the fight on his terms. Fiziev is a clean striker. His movement, his angles, his combinations, everything about his game is sharp and polished. But Gaethje, he's evolved past that days of just being a reckless pressure fighter. He's not just gonna charge forward blindly and turn this into a wild brawl just for the sake of it. Instead, he's gonna do the exact thing that he did in their first fight. Use his footwork, set traps, pick his moments, and then force Fiziev into those gritty exchanges where technique starts to break down. And that's where Gaethje thrives. He's not just about brawling, he's calculated chaos in my opinion. He doesn't need to create a war from the opening bell anymore. Instead, he's patient. He lets the fight come to him. And when he sees the right opening, that's when he flips the switch. That's exactly what we saw against Fiziev last time. Early on, Fiziev was sharp, landing clean, and matching Gaethje's speed. Or if anything, he was arguably faster than Gaethje. But as the fight wore on, Gaethje's experience, durability, and leg kicks started adding up. He wasn't just walking through shots like he used to. He was reading Fiziev's counters effectively and breaking them down. Now, with all that being said, we have to talk about what Fiziev could do differently this time around to give himself a better shot at winning. Because let's be real, he wasn't totally outclassed in the first fight. He had a lot of success actually. He was landing clean and early. He was matching Gaethje's pressure with sharp counters, and for the first 2 rounds, he looked like the faster, more technical striker. So what does he have to do to adjust? Well, the biggest thing is managing his energy better. That's the key factor for me. In their first fight, Fiziev came out fast, he looked sharp, explosive, and dangerous. But as the fight went on, that pace started catching up to him. And against someone like Gaethje, that's a huge problem. Gaethje wants you to burn yourself out. He thrives in deep waters. If Fiziev wants to flip the script, he has to fight at a pace that he can sustain for like the full 5 rounds, not just the first 2. Like I mentioned earlier, we saw a different side of Fiziev in the RDA fight. He wasn't just throwing everything with max effort early on. He paced himself, picked his shots, and still had enough gas in the tank to get the finish, at the end. That's exactly what he needs to do here. Instead of getting caught in Gaethje's chaotic rhythm, he should keep things sharp, technical, and controlled. Land his shots, move, reset, and make Gaethje chase him instead of just planting his feet and trading. Of course, that's easier said than done. Justin is one of the hardest guys to fight with discipline because he forces chaos, but we've seen that it can be done. Max Holloway, for an example, was able to implement a similar approach against Gaethje, maintaining a high pace while staying defensively sound and picking his moments to exchange. Fiziev has the skill set to do the same, but he has to stay committed to do it for all 5 rounds. Gaethje is dangerous from the start to finish, and if Fiziev fades late, that's when Justin can take over. Managing his gas tank while sticking to a disciplined game plan is the key to beating Gaethje in this fight.